Hey guys, welcome to another preview video for the upcoming Guilds of Ravnica Magic the Gathering set. This is for September 2nd, 2018. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of cards that were just spoiled for today. And if you could do me a huge favor before we start, head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/72DPI online. Make sure you get subscribed. If you already are subscribed, we really do appreciate it. Leave us a comment below telling us what types of cards you're looking forward to in the upcoming set. Ravnica is a very beloved plane, and this is the third time we've gone back to it, so we're pretty excited to be there. So with that, let's go ahead and jump right into the cards. Starting with the iconic cards, probably the most iconic cards when you think of the Ravnica plane, and that is the lands. We have a few of them spoiled here. It looks like they're going to be doing 5 and 5 as far as the guilds are concerned. So we have Steam Vents, Watery Grave, and Sacred Foundry. You've got blue, red, blue, black, and red, white. Tapping mana for either one of those. They come into play tapped unless you pay 2 mana. So Pain lands, great, awesome. Just another way to get your mana bases a little bit more on the splashable side. These are iconic in a couple different ways, mainly because in every set that we've gone to Ravnica, we've had these. So, you know, it wasn't really a big surprise. It would have been nice to get maybe a different type of land, but this is something that, you know, every once in a while we got to go back to it to make sure we keep the prices in check. Obviously, Wizards doesn't, you know, acknowledge the second market, but you know, keeps the prices in check as far as those single cards are concerned. So we're getting these 5 and then the next 5 in the set after that. So those are the new lands. So we've got some guild leaders in a couple different flavors here. So we've got Underrealm Lich, which is a 4/3 for 3 generic, 1 black and 1 green mana. It's an elf, zombie elf shaman, and his ability is if you would draw a card, instead of look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put one of those into your hand and the rest in your graveyard. This is a huge effect for a couple different reasons. It's a decent body. 4/3 on turn 5 is it's all right, but its ability is really what's going to help you curve out as far as your end game is concerned. You know, on turn 5, you're looking to have maybe this and maybe one other card in your hand. Black is notorious for being able to sacrifice things, draw cards, pay life, draw cards, things like that. So being able to draw a card, or instead of drawing a card, looking at the top 3 cards and deciding what do you want in your graveyard, things like that. That's a huge upside for this card. Now it also has kind of a like a pseudo regenerate from the old school days. You can pay 4 life. It gains indestructible, and then until end of turn, and then you tap it. So essentially, regeneration without saying regeneration. This makes it extremely hard to kill, especially since you can use your life as a resource. You know, this is a great draw mechanic, letting you look at 3 cards instead of just drawing 1, and then also filling up your graveyard. So this is, you know, if you open this up in your pre-constructed deck, or if you draft, you know, if you're in, this is going to pull you into those colors. It's a late game bomb for sure. And it'll definitely end games end games quickly once it hits the battlefield. Obviously, you'll need some type of draw effect in your deck to make this viable, because it itself does not draw you cards, so therefore it will not work by itself. Next up, we've got Boros Challenger. This is 1 white, 1 red for a 2/3 with Mentor, which is a new ability. Whenever this creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. So this can only buff a 1x. Keep in mind that it goes on the stack, so if your creature gets buffed before the Mentor ability resolves, then the Mentor ability will fizzle and nothing will happen. The nice thing about this is you can pay 4 mana and give the Challenger +1/+1 until end of turn. Seems a little expensive. I'm interested to see what the other rarities of Mentor have. It seems a little expensive. On the other hand, it does, the +1/+1 ability does work well with the mentor ability, since it is a 2/3. It's on curve as far as your attack defense is concerned. For 2 mana, 2/3 is great. 3 blocker is always a benefit. The threat of activation isn't as high because of the high cost of the ability. So it's an alright card. If you're in those colors, you'll play it when necessary. So then we got Thought Eraser. This is 1 black, 1 blue for a sorcery. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-land card from it. That player discards that card. That's pretty good. Now it also has another new ability called Surveil 1. This is kind of like a scry effect. Only, in my opinion, better. Scry is an ability that lets you look at the top X cards of your library. It's like Scry 1, Scry 2, Scry 3, whatever. Scry that many cards, so you look at the top number of cards, and you get to choose what order to put them back in, or you can put them on the bottom of your library. Now, Surveil with the number does the exact same thing, except for instead of putting it on the bottom of your library, you put those cards into your graveyard. This is good for a couple different reasons. There's some rumors going around that there's going to be some crossovers between guilds. So the Dimir and the Golgari both share black. So you can only imagine what this will do in a Golgari deck, where they're looking to put cards in the graveyard, build up a graveyard, and things become cheaper. They've got special. We'll talk about Undergrowth here in a second. But that is definitely laying the groundwork for some of these crossovers. So it's definitely interesting. That's Surveil. Next up, we have Firemind's Research. This is for Izzet. This is 1 red, 1 blue for an enchantment at rare. Whenever you cast an instant or a sorcery spell, put a charge counter on Firemind's Research. You can pay 1 blue and 1 generic to remove 2 counters to draw a card, or you can pay 1 red, 1 generic to remove 5 remove 5 counters, and you deal 5 damage to any target. So that's creature, player, planeswalker, any target is taken 5 to the face. This is more of kind of like a build around casual card. Unfortunately, playing this on turn 2, not affecting the board, and then turn 3 trying to cast 3 spells, cast 2 spells, and then turn 4 being able to draw a card. There's just a lot of setup cost here. There's going to be those commander players and those casual players and those people that go to play pre-release that say, oh, this is a great card, I'm going to build my deck around it, blah, blah, blah. I would recommend choosing a different rare. This is one of those rares that you don't want. It's a trap. It's definitely a trap. We especially in like a limited format or a sealed format where we all know that the game is won on the battlefield. Affecting the board is the best way to ensure that you gain victory. This just is too little, too late. Now, if it was 1 blue, draw, 1 blue, remove 2 charge counters, draw a card, great. If this had like a scry ability, then draw a card, that would be even better. But at the end of the day, the 2 mana, the 2 spells, or the 2 mana and the 5 spells just isn't what you need. If it came into play with charge counters on it, that would be a different story. But now you're kind of talking planeswalker type of abilities, and yeah, it's just it's not a good card. Stay away from it. So the next up, we've got Amura. This is the Soul of Accord. Much better card this time around than the Return to Ravnica version. She's a 2/2 for 1 green, 1 white, legendary creature, elf cleric at rare. And when she becomes tapped, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink. Notice how it's just when she becomes tapped. It doesn't have to be attacking or anything like that. We'll see here in just a moment that the Silencia clan has a ability called Convoke. This is a rehashed version, not rehashed version. This is a reused version from I think it was 2 or 3 core sets ago. Convoke basically allows you to tap creatures to pay for the mana cost of that spell. So, for her, she can tap for green or tap for white, which is great. The other thing to keep in mind, too, is Convoke does not look at summoning sickness. So if you play her on turn, let's say 5, and you've got 3 open mana and you've got a 4 casting cost Convoke spell, you can tap her for one of those mana, whether it's green, white, or generic, and then create your 1/1 along the way, which then itself can be tapped for mana. So at the end of the day, it's a solid card, much more user friendly. It's not a corner case scenario like her last card. Ral Izzet Viceroy is next. This is our first Planeswalker of the set. He is 1 red, 1 blue, 3 generic for a 5 loyalty Planeswalker. He's got a couple abilities here. Obviously, he's a mythic rare. Look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. Great. Perfect. Look at 2 cards. Draw a card. Great. One goes back into your graveyard. That's... we'll find out here in just a moment. The Izzet clan has some really nice graveyard shenanigans that kind of go in line with Golgari as well, and Dimir for that matter. So his -3 is Ral deals damage to target creature equal to the total number of instants and sorcery cards you own in exile and in your graveyard. So... this gives you the opportunity for his one ability to interact with the second ability. It's not too bad. Being able to bolt something, to the face, is great. It'd be even better if you could do it to your opponent to kind of close out the game. But I kind of see how they didn't want to just have people stacking up loads and loads of instants and sorceries in their deck and then just all in one foul swoop dropping this and then immediately -3 and ending the game. That would be a little too powerful. And then his ultimate ability is -8. You gain an emblem with, quote, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, this emblem deals 4 damage to any target and you draw 2 cards. So it's definitely a way to end the game, for sure. 4 damage is nothing to sneeze at. It's nice to be able to clear the way if you're, kind of losing and trying to bring yourself up to parity on the battlefield. So clearing out something with 4 toughness or less. The drawing 2 cards is nothing to sneeze at. It's just sad that it's whenever you cast a spell. The second thing to note here is it's the emblem that's dealing the damage. So even if you +1, +1, +1, -8, you're getting that emblem that's dealing the damage. So even though you don't have Ral anymore, he's sacrificed himself to give you the emblem. So therefore you can start casting spells. Essentially, that's what turn 5, this +1, 1, 2, 3. So 4 turns later, theoretically, you should have up to upwards of 9 mana if you've played your cards right. So you could definitely deal, 4, 8, 12, and then build your hand back up. So it's going to be an interesting card. I've seen it compared to Teferi quite a bit. And I believe Teferi's first ability is much stronger than this one. But at the end of the day, if blue-red is, has some supporting spells and things like that, then this might take off. But if we have a bunch of Firemind's research, then this thing's just going to sit in the side and, be a $5 Planeswalker. So, all right. So then we got some single-colored spells. Necromebia is next. It is a 1/1 at rare. For 1 blue and 1 generic. It has flying, and when it's put into your graveyard from your library, you may put it onto the battlefield. So when we were talking about like Surveil and some of those other abilities that lets you put cards into your graveyard from the top of your library, this is a great way to play a card for free. It's a 1/1 flyer for 2 by itself, which is okay. Not the best stats in the world. But that recursion and possible free 1/1 flyer is definitely something out there. It's not going to win any It's not going to win any limited games. It's a modern playable card. It'll be interesting to see what it does in standard, as well as limited and draft because of the include. I mean, if you look at the different spells that or the abilities we just talked about, there's a lot of, surveil, for instance. Looking at the top couple cards of your library and putting one into your graveyard if you choose. That will put this into play. So speaking of which, Sinister Sabotage is next. This is a counter spell that costs 2 blue and 1 generic. Pretty common. It's an uncommon spell at that, and it has Surveil 1. So you counter somebody's spell, and then you look at the top card of your library, and you can decide if you want to put that back on top of your library or put it in your graveyard. Let's see, your Quasi-Duplicate is next. It's a sorcerer at rare. It's 2 blue and 1 generic. Create a token that is a copy of target creature you control. This ability has Jumpstart. So this is its special ability, which we talked about, kind of putting cards in the graveyard. This ability shows up on sorceries and instants. And essentially, if you think about it, it's kind of like a version of Flashback. Flashback basically said you could pay the mana cost, or pay the flashback cost, which is usually an exorbitant amount of mana, to replay the spell again. And then if it dies or gets exiled, then if it goes back to the graveyard, it gets exiled instead. Jumpstarts plays a little bit similarly, only that you pay the mana cost that it originally cost plus discard a card. In my opinion, this is actually much better. I don't like the name Jumpstart. It just seems strange to me. I guess it kind of fits with Izzet's type of theme, or Vorthos or whatever, but it just seems, I don't know, it doesn't seem Magic-esque, I guess. I don't know. I'm not really sure what they could have called it, but I'm not too fond of the title. But I do like this better. I think I do like this better than Flashback, only because some of the commons and uncommon Flashback cards were just so expensive, and they had to be because they're common and uncommon cards. And this might, and this is probably a bad example because it's obviously a rare. But if they can, cut the cost of what a Flashback card was by like 2/3 or whatever, they cut it back 1/3. That to me, that would be a win. Discarding a card isn't a problem because there's so many cards that deal with the I mean, you could discard another Jumpstart card. Obviously, you're not getting the full benefit out of it, but you could do that. And at the end of the day, there's you've got Dredge, you've got Dimir that both care about graveyard stuff, and things like that. So, and like I said, there's some rumors of guild crossovers and stuff like that. So this is keep an eye on these Jumpstart cards. They might surprise you. Next up, we've got Neurotic Wound. This is 1 black instant. This is our first Golgari ability called Undergrowth. Brand new. Basically, Undergrowth cares about things in your graveyard. So this one, and they're all going to be different, so you'll have to kind of pay attention to what they do. So this one, the wound, it deals target creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. There's some misconception that this is being compared to Fatal Push. It's definitely not a Fatal Push. It's nice that it's instant speed. It's nice that it's 1 mana. You're not going to cast this on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3. This is going to be like your mid to late game to get rid of that really annoying, indestructible creature, or they attack in with everything for lethal damage, things like that. When the board has been cleared a couple times and your graveyard's filling up. The other misconception that I'm noticing online as well is people are saying that this card isn't going to be playable because creatures don't die very often, and I think that's going to be I think that's a pretty big misstep. There's going to be a lot of combat. That's one of the big things about Ravnica, at least in the past, but there's been a lot of combat, a lot of things going to the graveyard, especially with Graveyard Matters abilities like Undergrowth, like Dimir's ability, things like that. Mentor, for Boros wants people attacking. So, there's going to be a lot of combat, and especially in like limited, this is going to be a huge limited card. Like being able to premium removal for limited and sealed games, right? Like I said, you're not going to be casting this on turn 2 to kill their one drop or anything like that, unless something really bad has happened. Things of that nature. This is going to be your turn 4, turn 5 removal spell after your 1, 2, and 3 drop have been killed, or sacrificed, or whatever the case may be. Conclave Tribunal is next. Here's our Convoke enchantment. It's uncommon for 4 mana. That's 3 generic and 1 white. Convoke, so obviously you can tap up to 4 creatures to pay for it. One of them would have to be white or something in between there in combo with land. And then when it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Conclave Tribunal leaves the battlefield. The only thing this is missing is flash. The only thing. If this had flash, it'd have to be a rare. I mean, there's no doubt about it. The seal away, spells like that. This is again Oblivion Stone, Oblivion Stone. I don't know. This is one of those cards that's great because there's alternative castability for it, right? So if you've got 2 mana and 2 creatures out, now you can threaten this ability where your opponent's like, well, do I play my bomb here? You've got open mana, things like that. They have to deal with your creatures as like a resource. Obviously, it doesn't have flashback, so you're not going to be able to in response to you playing this, or at the end of your turn, I'm playing Conclave Tribunal. But they still have to know that it's out there, and if their creature doesn't have haste, they're just essentially just playing it into a wide open board or whatever. So, definitely an interesting card. It's going to cause some problems for limited play, trying to play around it. But it is at uncommon, so you won't see too many of them. But it's definitely worth picking up at least 1, if not 2 of those in your limited or sealed pools. Legion Warboss is next. It's 1 red, 2 generic for a 2/2 Goblin Soldier at rare. It's got the new ability Mentor, which we just got done talking about. When it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or target attacking creature with lesser power. So, you're going to have to stack these. It sounds like Mentor is going to be on a lot of creatures. So you're going to have to be careful when you're stacking these abilities, because remember, it's the first one in is the last one out. So you want your big creatures to build up your little creatures first, and then kind of go from there. So at the beginning of so he's got a second ability. So at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. That token gains haste until end of the turn and attacks this combat if able. So essentially, this thing is always going to have a target, which is great, right? You attack, right? Actually, you don't even need to attack with the Mentor to create the 1/1. Obviously, to make it a 2/2, you would, but at the beginning of combat, it's just going to spit out a 1/1 red goblin creature that's gains haste and is tapped and attacking. So, if you're attacking with the war boss, you've got to have it beefed up a little bit, because you don't want to pay 3 mana for a 1/1, because they're obviously going to block this. So, just be on the lookout. Definitely, this Mentor thing is going to be interesting. It's when you couple that with like double strike and first strike and some flying abilities, which red doesn't necessarily have flying, but white does. It's gonna make for some interesting limited games. So I'm kind of scratching my head at this one. It's definitely a build around card, and it kind of stands on its own as well. So if you've got a way to buff him up, with other Mentor creatures, it's definitely a plus. Definitely a plus. And the other thing too is this might actually play well in like an Izzet deck. And I know most Izzet decks are more spells than creatures, but most of their creatures have low power, right? Like their drakes and their like wizards and stuff like that. Majority of those, are like 1/2s or 1/3s or whatever. Very few of them are more than power more than that. So it's definitely something to kind of keep your eye on, and there might be a little bit of crossover there with Is It, so we'll see. So, all right, guys. Well, I really do appreciate you watching. Make sure you get subscribed. Like I said, leave a comment. What cards are your favorite? What are you looking to play at your pre-release? This is the third time we've been to Ravnica, so everyone's kind of well-versed in the different guilds. We're going to be starting back up with the Mana Drain on going live every Monday over on twitch.tv/72DPI online. You can check out our archive videos on www.youtube.com/72DPI online. So I really appreciate you guys. Have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow.